Hi again, Greg Bell, the News Tribune, here on Friday, day 3 of the Seahawks coaching search in earnest, and interview parts anyway. Where does this stand? Well, first of all, the first coach the Seahawks have had other than Pete Carroll since 2000 has 9 candidates known anyway at this point, 6 of whom had never been a head coach at any level before. 3, of course, have. Mike Vrabel, the Tennessee Titans, Seahawks want to talk to him. He's on the list. Raheem Morris interviewed today virtually with the Seahawks today, Friday. He's the Rams defensive coordinator who spent 3 seasons at the end of the 2000s as the Tampa Bay Buccaneers head coach. And then some guy named Dan Quinn, you might remember, currently the Dallas Cowboys defensive coordinator, was the Seahawks Super Bowl defensive coordinator during their back-to-back Super Bowl years before the Atlanta Falcons made him a first-time head coach from 2015 to 20. The issues at hand here are that the Seahawks want to hire. John Schneider is in charge of this hire. Jody Allen made that choice when she fired Pete Carroll last week. And John Schneider, does he want a first-time head coach with no experience? Does he want a Bobby Slowick, a 36-year-old Houston Texans offensive coordinator who's in the division round this week in the AFC playoffs? Does he want 37-year-old Ben Johnson, also never been a head coach before? The Lions play caller is also in the divisional playoffs this weekend. They're half Pete Carroll's age, never been a head coach before. The Seahawks' choice is to have somebody who has a known track record of building staffs, like a Mike Vrabel. They can look at his time at the Tennessee Titans, playoff years, hiring offensive and defensive staffs, offensive defensive coordinators. John Schneider said that is a big, big factor in this search of what this new coach is going to bring in terms of defensive and offensive coordinators and staff. Or do they want an unknown? Someone who would then say it's the first time a Ben Johnson or Bobby Slowick, who would then have to bring his own staff, and that may be someone that has more experience than he does, probably would. John Schneider talked about the fact that a coordinator may have, if he's good enough and young enough for the established coach, may leave the Seahawks after the new hire here in the next couple years, and that doesn't do well for the continuity of quarterback or the offensive staff. A more seasoned and experienced coach like a Mike Vrabel, perhaps a younger coordinator who would stay a little longer in Seattle before trying to find a head coaching position. So that's one factor, is the experience. Frank Smith interviewed yesterday, Thursday, with the Seahawks virtually. The Miami Dolphins offensive coordinator in his early 40s has never had a head coaching job either. Mike McDaniel calls most of the play-by-plays during games for the Miami Dolphins. Morris, Vrabel, Dan Quinn have had that experience. So that's one choice the Seahawks have to make. 2, do they want an offensive or defensive mind? For the last 14 years, we all know Pete Carroll was a defensive mind. If it is a true clean change and break, and Jody Allen wants a complete regime change in a new era, they would go to an offensive mind, like a Ben Johnson or a Bobby Slowick. But the worst part of this team is the Seahawks defense. 30th in the NFL again this year against the run, back-to-back years that's happened. 30th overall, they've actually regressed. Don't have consistent pass rush. Don't have consistent run defense at all. When teams run at them, they win. They got to fix defense. So they bring in another defensive line, which of course Mike Vrabel is. The third thing to consider is, what is the new coach's vision going to be at quarterback? Yes, Geno Smith's under contract, but it's only for 2 more years. They can get out of that deal this year before March without having to pay much money, or they can get out of it at the end of the 2024 season. Smith turns 34 this coming season. What is the new coach's contract that's going to be longer? What's the new coach whose contract is going to be longer than Geno Smith's is? What's his vision after Smith at quarterback in Seattle? John Schneider is going to be asking that. What's the timeline for this? Well, the NFL has changed the interview rules. It used to be that you could pretty much interview during the playoffs anybody you wanted in person and fly them in, even playoff coaches. Not anymore. The NFL squashed that and made new rules this October saying that you have to wait until after the division round to interview in person anybody who's employed by an NFL team. And if an AFC or NFC championship game assistant coach is on your list, you have to wait until after that AFC and NFC championship game, which Slowick and Ben Johnson have a chance to be for Houston and Detroit respectively. So all of this may take a few weeks. They've yet to interview anyone in person. The NFL rules are you can't even interview anyone in person until after the division round starting on Monday, which means everything up to now has been virtual. Dan Quinn is supposed to interview virtually this weekend with the Seahawks, and then we'll go into next week to begin the in-person interviews. But a lot for John Schneider to consider, whether he wants a first-time head coach or one with experience, whether he wants an offensive or defensive mind, and what that new coach hire is going to be thinking about a quarterback beyond Geno Smith. All my coverage is at thenewstribune.com, as always, and on Twitter at GVelSeattle. Appreciate you watching. Have a great weekend.